Good morning and welcome to Community Roundtable, a free public service brought to you on AM 1590 KDJS. If you're a member of a nonprofit organization and would like to be featured on the program, call the KDJS Newsline at 320-235-2900. That's 320-235-2900.
This is our Community Roundtable program. Al Sheldon here. We're on AM 1590 and on FM 105.7. And for Rick Loge, who was standing right here, last time you and I were on, we did not have a 105.7. Now we do. Get the FM dial, the AM dial. We're good to go. Stephanie Felt also is here to visit once again. It's all about motorcycle safety because as we're recording today, we look out the window and it's nice. The sun is shining. Things have greened up a little bit. Temperature is supposed to hit close to 70, 72 degrees this afternoon. So that means motorcycles, and you know, in recent weeks they have been out no matter what the weather. Because I've seen guys riding in rain and it's 44. I don't think they planned on that, but they were. You have to get from point A to point B. If those are your wheels, those are your wheels. I'm not a rain guy. I'm really fair weather. So, Stephanie, appreciate you lining things up here to get things rolling here in the month of May and talk about motorcycle safety. You ride bike?
You know, I don't. That's why I bring people like Rick who know what they're talking about. But what I do know is that I do drive on our roads, and I know that I need to be looking twice because motorcycles are out there and they're easy to miss, and not everybody's out there wearing high vis, although we would like them to be. But just as motorists or in passenger vehicles and pickup trucks and whatever you're driving, just know that the warm weather's out there. There's going to be a lot more motorcyclists out there, and just pay attention and look for them.
Rick and I included. You know, I don't ride a lot, but I'll come to work and back, you know, on my old bike from New London. So as long as it's running good, and I think it is. So, Rick, a little background on yourself.
Excuse me.
A little bit closer.
Well, my name is Rick Loge. I've been teaching motorcycle classes now with the state of Minnesota for about 35 years, primarily here in Wilmer and Hutchinson. And I also ride a bike. I have two bikes. I got my Harley and I got my dirt bike. So I'm out in all kinds of weather, I guess.
Mm-hmm. What got you into dirt biking?
When I was younger in high school, I used to race dirt bikes, and one of my buddies, who's 60 now, he's just a national champion for 60 and over, and he got me back into racing again. So kind of living the life again.
So you're going to get back to that dream. Maybe you'll be in the championship race against a friend, you know? Where was that at, just out of curiosity? Where do you win that at?
The racing now?
Yeah.
I do down in Iowa and northern Nebraska, and then my buddy just won the national championship in Texas.
Nice. Warm weather states.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, that's unique. A totally different bike than the Harley, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is. They ride totally different. That's one thing that's really important. If you jump on someone else's bike, it's not going to ride like your bike, so the friction zone and everything else is going to be different. So you got to reteach yourself on every single bike you get on.
So when you're teaching, you mentioned Wilmer and Hutchinson. Is that through the college, or?
It's at the college that we teach at. The state of Minnesota puts on the program. Minnesota Motorcycle Safety Center does. So
this is for people of all ages? Or?
People of all ages, 16 and over. If they're under the age of 18, they're required to take the class. And 18 and over, of course, it's optional. But we strongly recommend that anyone that's interested in taking motorcycle or getting into motorcycling take our classes from us.
Well, you know, we just talked about this at home last week. When can you get your motorcycle endorsement on your license? Is it when you're 16 or do you have to be 18?
You have to, it'd be 16, but you have to come through our class first. If you're over 18, you could go to the DMV and get your license right through them.
I got my endorsement so many years ago. I hate to say how many years ago that was. I was 16 and had been riding on our farm for just northern Iowa. Riding on the farm for I don't know how many years. You know, we had a little Honda 50, and kind of slowly graduated up the scale from there. But the big thing was, we're going to get the test. We're taking the test. Get the smallest motorcycle possible. It's easier to maneuver the cones and all the things, you know. And then when we're there, here comes this fella on a full dress Harley, right through the cones, so smooth, made us look bad. But Do the kids still do that? Do the people still want to bring the smaller bike, think it's easier to handle? Or?
Well, like I said, our classes, we provide the bikes for the basic class and the intermediate class. It's when you get to the advanced and the expert class that you would bring your own bike into. And it all comes down to skills. You know, once you get on your bike and get out and ride and practice these things on the road or in an empty parking lot, it becomes second nature to you. So that guy that came in on that Harley, he probably did a lot of practicing on his own.
Yeah, I would say, because he kept that thing upright. That must have weighed 600 pounds.
I'm sure.
More than that.
I'm sure the Hawk did.
Oh gosh. Let's get back to Stephanie here. So many different angles of the topics we can get into when it comes to road safety and motorcycles, and we've all got a story or two to tell. And I imagine you've seen a couple things driving down the road that you're maybe scratching your head on while you're driving, right?
Well, yeah, and back in my wilder days, I had plenty of dating experiences riding on the back where somebody was like, "I'm really going to impress this girl," and drive. And I'm sure you guys never did that, though. No. One trend that I want to bring up that we do see is that with a lot of crash factors that I'm in here talking with you about, it's the young males, and we just stress, young males, because the inexperience and not wearing the seatbelts and the speed and so forth. But one thing that we do see with the motorcycle deaths and serious injuries is that it's more of an older trend. And by older, I mean, 40 and up. Mm-hmm. What we're seeing is some of these guys, they rode when they were younger, and then they got busy with families, or maybe money was tight, sold the bike type of thing. But now wanting to get back into it and kind of thinking that either the skills are the same or having a different size bike or a different kind of bike. And so we really, and that's why I really wanted to bring Rick in here to talk about what those classes really encompass, is because we see crashes where people just jump on a buddy's bike and take it for a spin, and like Rick was saying, you really don't know how that bike responds, or it may be bigger than what you used to ride.
The weight, the torque in your throttle, how fast you're going to jump off,
Right. And it's hard. I don't know about you guys. I'm sure this isn't you, but a lot of the gentlemen I know, they're like, "I know what I'm doing. Don't tell me what to do." Rick's laughing at me right now. But, we have sent a number of, like, the law enforcement, the EMS, a lot of the firefighters I know, they have gone through these motorcycle safety classes, and some have gone even through the intermediate and advanced classes. And I said, okay, tell me, what'd you think? Because I don't live in that world. I don't know what goes on there. And they've said, I thought I knew everything, but I picked up a lot of good tips. I learned that I was turning wrong, like I could be turning better, or and they'll tell me little things that they picked up. So even the most experienced riders, when you get together with a group of peers and a seasoned instructor, you're gonna learn something.
Some people don't know how to be a good passenger either,
I just hang on tight is all I know.
Some people fight the corner. I have had to tell people, don't fight what I'm doing. It's so tough. You mentioned riding at a younger age, and you progress up. My first big bike, as I call it, was a 1976 Kawasaki KZ900. Pretty fast bike for a big bike, 4-cylinder. And then I sold that due to family reasons. That motorcycle is now a chain link fence around a house down in Boone, Iowa. But the guy that bought the bike from me lived down the road in Ames, right off I-35. And I said, have you driven a bike before? Oh, yeah. Well, he got on the bike in my yard, promptly tipped over. I looked at him, I said, do you want me to drive it home for you? And you can follow in my car. He said, no, I'll get it. I never heard from him again. I'm guessing he made it okay. But that was a little scary. I'm like, this guy, I said, you got to watch this thing. It's heavy, and it goes fast. It will, for a road bike, a passenger bike, I call it, it's got some pretty good, as we say, snort.
Yeah, exactly. Got some English, my dad used to
There you
call.
go. Yeah.
But one thing also is I do speak to friends and family and different people that I bump into at community events, and they tell me, but I've never ridden a motorcycle, so I can't take that class. But maybe Rick can speak to, like, for that beginner class, what do you need going in, or can you have never gotten on a bike before?
Maybe you don't own a bike yet,
Well, our basic rider class, that's set up for someone that has never ridden a bike. Basically, it's the only requirement we have for that class is that you're able to ride a bicycle, because on a motorcycle you got to be able to balance just
Right.
like a bicycle. It's set up for, like I said, for basic. You walk in, and as if you've never seen a motorcycle, we'll walk you through. And what I like to do in that class, or all my classes actually, is tell all my students that look at the whiteboard. There's nothing on there. I want you to be that same way. You know nothing about motorcycling. I don't care if you've got 40 years of experience. If you have an open mind and wipe everything out that you think you know, because everything you know is probably bad habits, and do what we tell you to do, or you'll walk out of our classes being a much better motorcyclist. But the basic riding class is for the beginner class.
What do people tell you, Rick, that they are afraid of? That when it comes to riding a motorcycle, what concerns
The
them?
number one thing is tipping over. When they get out on the bikes, the bikes aren't even running. They have to push them by their feet, straddle walking them, getting used to the weight of the bike, transferring the weight left, right, turning the handlebars, and doing the friction zone and all that. It's not the getting out there and the bikes are running right away. There's about a half hour of where the bikes are not doing anything, and you're just getting used to the controls and the weights and how the handlebar works.
But that'd be weird. Putting the right foot down. I never put my right foot down. I have once in a blue moon, just at a stop.
Your left foot?
My bike's not even running. My right foot. I put my left foot down. I'm always the left foot guy. My right foot. I'm not used to doing that.
Yeah, when you come to a stop, they want you to put your left foot down first, and then
Right.
put both feet down.
I end up with both feet down, but it's always left foot first.
That's
my-
then the right foot comes off later. But
Yeah, it's like climbing on a horse, I guess.
yeah,
Which I'm terrible at, by the way.
Well, I want to say too that when having someone else try and teach you, as opposed to someone who is an instructor like Rick, it's almost better to go in blank slate than to pick up bad habits first and have to relearn those. And for my my women listening out there, I always say, never have your spouse teach you how to golf, shoot, or drive. So I think that motorcycles are included. Rick's nodding, so I don't know. That I think my opinion holds up there. It's better to learn from someone who can teach you the proper way. And,
for sure. Yeah.
So
you mentioned tipping over is the biggest fear, and I think there's a list of interesting causes that make you tip over. I want to start with what concerns me every gosh darn spring, and that's the gravel, the film of stuff on the road and by the edge of the road and the curves that can be a little greasy. You lose traction on that stuff,
yes, you do. Yep.
And then I'm thinking my driveway. This happens in the fall. We have oak trees. What happens with oak trees? What falls onto the driveway? Those little gosh darn acorns. I can't pay the squirrels enough to get them out of there. And I've taken my motorcycle down my driveway, and I'm like, boy, feet down,
Right.
Those things are greasy too.
And that's one thing we teach them in our classes is keep your eyes and head and eyes up, looking ahead, picking up the stuff before you're on top of it. So in the springtime, like you're talking about sand and that in the corners, well, if you keep your head and eyes up looking through the corners as you're coming into them, you can pick up the different texture, the color on the road surface that will give you an indication. It could be sand, it could be gravel, it could be even snow or ice there, depending on how early you're getting out. And the acorn thing and pine cones, again, keeping the head and eyes up, looking for that different characteristic on the road that all of a sudden you've been driving down a road and it's been perfectly gray for cement, and all of a sudden you see a different shade there. Well, that's telling you something's happened there.
That's great. Yeah, boy, things you think about like that. There's one thing that Stephanie and I have talked about this before on different traffic safety topics, and it has to do with something that we cannot control. Deer.
yeah,
or raccoons,
absolutely. Yeah.
whatever. Oh, man. Rick's got a raccoon story coming up.
Yeah,
there.
and I was going to touch base too on, speaking of things that make us tip over, a fair amount of the motorcycle fatalities and serious injuries have alcohol involved. So I did pull a stat. There were 49 motorcycle drivers killed in 2017, and 38 of those were tested, and of those, 42% had alcohol in their system. So, I mean, data is data, but we all know that, if you have anything to drink, it's better to just hold off on, on driving. We always stress that with motor vehicles, but for motorcycles, it's even more imperative. And a lot of times, too, what we find is that alcohol use kind of coincides with lack of helmet use as well. So it's just a bad mix of things. So we want to tell people, make sure that you drive sober and wear that helmet. Those are some of the, and avoid the deer, but you can't really, they're not just at those deer crossing signs, right?
And on that note, gosh, I know we had in the news just the other day, a lady on her bike had a deer pop out in front of her. She did not have a helmet on and had to be airlifted, and I hope she's okay. I don't know the outcome, but nothing you can do with the deer,
I want to hear Rick's raccoon story.
Yes, I do. Yeah, okay, big guy, what do you got here now? Pressure's on.
Well, we had an instructor that was riding last year, was riding at night in through some corners, and he hit a raccoon, which most people don't think raccoons will be able to put you down. It doesn't take much to put a bike down, but he ended up going down, and he had all of his protective gear on, jacket, pants, and the helmet and gloves and everything. And when he went down, he broke his collarbone and one of his ribs. And then Bill, Schaefer, out of the Minnesota Motorcycle Safety Center, he just hit a deer about a month ago, and he punctured his lung and broke some ribs. So
there are so many deer out right now. It's spring. I have seen countless numbers of deer the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, probably. Every direction. Daytime, nighttime, doesn't matter. Some of them were jogging like humans one day between New London and Spicer, right on the shoulder of 23. 3 of them headed south. They must have been wanting to go to the Dairy Queen or something. I don't know.
Well, and don't you find they used to, when you came upon them, they'd be like, "Oh no, a car," and they'd run away. Now they're sort of like, "Hey, how's it going?"
They didn't even turn around and look at me. They were just jogging along like you or I would be jogging if we wanted to. I don't jog, so there.
Well, the other thing you got to remember about deer is that they're a herd animal. So if you see one, there's probably going to be more than one. So if one runs across in front of you, be ready for that second, third, fourth one to come behind it.
I had years ago. Friends of mine were riding. They had a Yamaha, a large twin cylinder, like 750. We called them shakers because they vibrated quite a bit. And they hit a skunk. It didn't tip them over, but you knew they hit a skunk. They had probably 45 miles to get home yet. It was not good. Not good. But they were happy to be upright, Is there, if you can control anything, is there a way to properly tip? If you know you're going to tip, what do you do?
Well, we always tell our students we do not want to lay our bikes down, because what happens if all of a sudden you've committed to put your bike down and the deer gets out of your way? There's no coming back out of it once you're down.
Yeah.
So just stay on your bike, keep it upright. At least you have more protection. You got the front wheel in front of you, the handlebars. Once you go down, there's no coming back up.
Mm-hmm. And you've got your front brake in addition to your back brake. I know you teach that in the courses, but you can come down to a stop pretty quick. Not always quick enough, but you can.
Yeah, your front brake is like 75 to 80% of your braking power is on that front brake. The reason for that is your weight transfers to the front tire, and your back tire lightens up. So technically, when you're braking, you're putting more and more pressure on your front brake. You should be putting less and less pressure on your rear brake, because if you keep the same amount of pressure on that rear brake, you're going to lock it up, and then you'll have your little fishtail going.
Yeah. You mentioned, Stephanie and Rick both just a couple minutes ago, high visibility clothing. What do you recommend? Anything special? Should it be just anything bright colored?
Anything bright that's out of nature. Like the bright reds and pinks and that. People driving around, they see the browns and the greens all the time in nature. Something that stands out will help you, hopefully, prevent you from being in an accident.
No camo.
Well, don't count on it. But the other thing you can do is you can add a modulator to your headlight and your brake light. For those of you that's ever seen one modulator on a motorcycle, you'll remember it because it looked like that was going across the railroad tracks, a bunch of bumps, but it caught your attention. So what we want to do as motorcyclists is make ourselves as visible as possible out there. You can also play the what if game. if I'm driving and I'm on my motorcycle, I'm playing the what if game all the time. What if this car down the road is going to pull in front of me? What am I going to do? So you have it planned before it happens, and if it does happen, you already have your plan ahead there, and drive like you're invisible, because most of the time we are invisible to the other road users out there. They may look at you, but they don't see you.
Got to be thinking, you know. I have seen some things the last 5 years, and both of these instances go to Miami, Florida. Busy, busy city. And we like to land and get out and drive south to the Keys. You got to go through Miami. And I've seen a couple of bikers there just do wrong things. I mean, wrong things. You got 3 lanes of traffic going this way. And it's busy, it's slow. Some people get impatient, right? The fellows on the motorcycles, one guy was just going in between lanes, in between vehicles. And the other fellow was on the right-hand side where there was no lane. Scooting right along, going to make his turn eventually. And people aren't looking for him. I saw him. I was in the other lane. I'm like, oh, look at that guy go. Now, what if somebody were to, for some dumb reason, open their door or make a right turn and they don't know he's there coming up on them?
Right.
Bang, you know? Right. You got to be looking, as a car driver, you got to be, have the old swivel head going.
You do. You're talking about cases like, Florida, California, in California they can split the lanes, where they can go down the middle of the lane, so on the lines. Well, the same thing is, if someone opens the door, if I was in California, I don't know if I'd want to do that, because I know a lot of motorists out there don't like that law, and sometimes they will open the door on purpose, or you'll see stuff like that. Motorcyclists riding on the right shoulder passing cars, and is that safe? No.
And on that note, the interesting number here that more than half of all motorcycle accidents are just the motorcycle, which goes back to training, obviously.
Right. A lot of the accidents occur in corners, going too fast, going wide in corners. And that's what we teach in our class, how to take corners, coming in, setting up for the corner, and being able to roll on the throttle. Ideally, that's what you want to be able to do, is roll on the throttle through the corner so it stabilizes your bike. But if you come in too hot and fast into the corner, you got to hold that throttle steady, because once you roll off that throttle, your bike's going to straighten up, and you're going to go straight off the corner, either into oncoming traffic or into the ditch, depending on what corner you're taking. Something
that you and I talked about last, probably July. I believe Sheriff Hartog was here with us at that time, and we're in the other room. And I brought this up. I think it bears worth repeating, because as a young guy, I was 16, 17 years old in our hometown, going down the road, had a little bend in the road. Not a big bend at all. I froze. And I nearly didn't make that slight bend in the road. My hands, I just froze. I could not turn. Wow, I remember that to this day. That was a long time ago, but boy, that's stuck in the old brain. You had a name for that, I think.
Well, there's the target fixation. Where you're looking is where you're going to end up going, and that happens a lot when cars pull out in front of motorcyclists. They'll look at the car versus looking at their escape route. So where you look is where you end up going. So in that case, I was going to say, I shared a story of a buddy of mine, a teacher, never ridden a motorcycle, buys one, comes to the first corner. He thought it was a bicycle, so he was turning it like a bicycle. Well, it's not like a bicycle, and he ended up going in the ditch. He calls me, and I said, I don't have a trailer. You figure it out. You get in town yourself. So.
Yeah, there's so many things that can be on the brain that are good or bad, but like say, have on the brain, have a plan, I guess. I don't know what else. Stephanie, you've got something to add.
What I just wanted to say was, I think this all circles back around to the importance of getting training, and I was wondering if maybe Rick could speak to the fact of if someone wants more information on it, or the costs or dates or anything like that, where can they go to get that info?
Yeah.
Well, we'll just go over the basic rider course is $195. It's 14 and a half hours, 14 to 15 hours. It's it's like 4 or 5 hours classroom. The rest of the time you're on the bike. Then you move up to the intermediate class, which is $55, and it's a 5-hour course. And we will provide bikes, but you could also bring your own bike there as long as it's street legal and you have insurance on it. And then from there you move into the advanced class, which is $75, and that's an 8-hour course. And then the next step up from that would be our Minnesota Expert Rider course, which is $75, and that's an 8-hour course. And the expert class is offered here in Wilmer and then 2 other spots down the city. So right in Wilmer here. It is offered May 19th and June 30th here in Wilmer.
What are you doing in an expert class?
The expert class, you bring your own bike in, and it's kind of similar to a police academy where they're training their motorcyclists on their patrol bikes. So they're putting them in corners, quick stop, high speed quick stops, swerves. Actually, I'm going to be taking the class in June 30th, so I haven't taken it yet, and I'm looking forward to it.
Going to bring the Harley for that one?
No, I'm bringing my dirt bike.
Dirt bike. How big is your dirt bike, out of curiosity? What's the difference between that and your Harley?
My dirt bike's a 450 and my Harley is a 1200, but my dirt bike sets so much higher and has knobby tires and a higher suspension versus
Is that a single cylinder?
What's that?
Single cylinder?
No, that's a twin.
Twin. Okay.
Twin. Yep.
Okay. Gosh, you think of all these old bikes that are so cool, and how fast some of them were that were made back in the day. A friend of mine had a Kawasaki 500 triple.
Oh, yes.
One of those two-cycle things.
Yep.
Sounded really bizarre going down the road, but that bike was so fast. And
and you thought it was fast then. Now you get on some of these sport bikes nowadays, and it's something else. And
I was passed by two of them on Friday afternoon on Highway 55 between Paynesville and Annandale somewhere. And I saw them behind me, and I knew they wanted to get around me, and there was nobody coming, and I just kind of hugged the right side. Whoa! Those things go.
They do.
Well, and that's one of our crash factors that we always talk about. I know, I feel like the mom here always
That's
like
quite
raining
all
on
right.
the parade. But, excessive speed, if you're going faster than the posted speed limit and say that deer does jump out at you or the car does do something that you weren't expecting or you do hit a patch of gravel or sand, if you've got that extra speed, that's just more speed that you've got to dump. So I
Less
always
reaction time for you.
Exactly. So just be as safe as you can because it's hard to when the EMTs have to show up and peel you off the pavement. That's not the time to go. I wish I wouldn't have been speeding. So
As my wife would say, road rash and much more.
right.
Don't want that. You see people riding, they've got their swimsuit on or shorts and a
Flip-flops.
small top and
Yeah.
flip-flops. Yeah.
Yep. I saw one guy, this was last summer, he was on, I don't know what kind of motorcycle it was a smaller one, driving through Spicer and texting. So I thought that was interesting. I hadn't seen a motorcyclist texting before.
I saw a guy on his phone in Marshall right downtown one day, going really slow, but he was on his phone talking and riding on it, going around the corners,
because that's totally safe, yeah.
I have a hard time talking and walking with my
I know.
phone. I'm not even going to try to ride a motorcycle and think about my phone. The only thing I make sure is it doesn't fall out of my pocket. As you feel the yep, phone's still there, we're good,
One thing I want to bring up, and I know this is kind of a veer from the conversation, but before we run out of time, I wanted to say that our Joyride program kicks in next weekend.
Good to
So
know.
Memorial Weekend through Labor Day, we run the Joyride program, and what that is the participating bars this year are the Spicer American Legion, O'Neill's, and Zorba's. And for $5 that you can buy at one of those establishments, you can get a sober ride home within a 6-mile radius of Spicer or city limits of Wilmer.
Okay.
So like I say, we're running that on Friday and Saturday nights all throughout the summer.
Wow.
And for more information on that, you can go to cctbus.org and click the Joyride link and get all that information.
Very good. And on that note, you mentioned time. I'm looking over here. We're about out of time. We're going to have to get together again in July, end of July or something, and just update everything and keep rolling because people are going to need reminders. Right?
Well, and we've got hands-free that's going to kick in August. So hands-free will be
perfect
big in
timing,
July.
Yeah, Stephanie, thanks a bunch. Appreciate you coming in. And,
Thank you.
And Rick, a pleasure, man. Good to see
Thank
you
you.
again.
It's good seeing you again.
Keep busy on these courses. It's a wonderful thing, for sure. Rick Loge, Stephanie Felt with us on Community Roundtable.
You've been listening to Community Roundtable, a free public service brought to you on AM 1590 KDJS. If you're a member of a nonprofit organization and would like to be featured on the program, call the KDJS Newsline at 320-235-2900. That's 320